go. Cool. So what's happening? Happy Friday to you and yours. What's going on this weekend? What's going on coming up? First things first, obviously, some people turn in quiz number one. Make sure you get that in by Monday's class. Okay, we got plenty of time to do that today, Saturday, Sunday, and even if you want to do it before class on Monday, but make sure it's in by Monday, quiz number one. That's covering learning module number one. You'll see learning module number two is up and running, and that's where everything from today onward is going to be posted until we take some things that look at what we're getting into with Greece. Those will all be contained within learning module number two. All right. Making sure that, we got some people asking some questions, looking at quiz. Yes. Yeah, so when I get into, and this always happens, guys, this always happens with quiz assessment. As I'm getting into those today, tonight, this weekend, a lot of times and sometimes on the fill in the blank answers, if you, they're very touchy. So if you don't capitalize one of the letters, or if you're just off on spelling by one letter, it marks it as wrong. But when I go back in to assess it, I will grade it out correctly. Okay. Is that so? Hopefully that if you put something in, then you're looking at it, you're like, hey man, I think I got that right. Don't worry about that. I'll go back in and reassess those and make sure that those are all taken care of. What else? Cam says, yeah, okay. So quiz, obviously guys, you're sort of just running through, again, notes, reading videos, all those types of things. Have that all together, ready for you, and ready to go, in terms of that, quiz time goes. This weekend, and what's happening for Monday, over this weekend, a little bit later today, and you can work on it tonight, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be looking at CPA number 3 coming up for Monday. Okay, and that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. Those are going to be questions relating to Greek religion and Greek environment, which we're going to look at here for a couple minutes. Give you the kind of brief rundown on that. Then you can look at the readings and start to get into those for the weekend, and then we can get some discussions going for those questions on Monday as we sort of propel ourselves and move in to the Greek environment. Okay, so that's what's going on for this weekend. Kind of prep yourself, get ready for that. And like I said, in the link that I sent out yesterday, you want to look at the first 12 pages of chapter 5, looking into, now one of the things, and I'll share my screen here real quick with you guys, and so kind of give me the thumbs up when you can see it. I want to show you some things from the early parts of the chapter. So I'll let that come up on your guys' screen, and you guys can give me some affirmation when it pops up on your screen. That would be great. Okay, great. Thanks, Bish. So guys, what you're going to see on pages 173 and 174, you're going to see a bleep ton of terms. Okay, don't worry yourself with trying to write down and get the definitions out for all of these terms that you see listed here. We will hit on a few of these as we progress through this chapter, But if you're worried about all these terms and trying to find out the definitions and the meanings behind all these terms, you're going to get bogged down. You're going to get lost in this chapter, and that's not the point. All right. As this is a History 101 class, we can hit on just the biggest items of each culture that we're going to look at. And this chapter gets really involved in a lot of stuff with the Greeks. And I don't want us to get bogged down and lost in certain areas. Now, there are certain things within these terms that you're going to see and that we're going to talk about and that you will have knowledge of as we move into next week. Okay. But don't worry about going through all of them to try and figure out, who everybody is or what all these things are. Okay. Some of them, like I said, will pop up from time to time that you'll have knowledge of. Also, if we're looking back at the previous page here, the big thing to not worry about, the big thing to focus on is question number 1. Okay, especially for this weekend. In what ways did Greek geography and topography impact the history of the ancient Greek world? Okay, that question right there is a really big one I want to focus on as we get into this weekend and into next week. Okay, let's see, here's somebody throwing something.
What's topography?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, hop in, buddy.
What is topography?
Yeah, topography. Good question. Anybody else want to help us out before your friendly prof gives the answer to that? Topography is a different type of word. You got geography, then you have topography. Feel free, anybody, to chime in, type it into the chat. Okay, good. So Bishop, yeah, it says features of the land. Good. I think, yeah, that's a pretty good working definition. Topography usually works in terms of, like what is the elevation? Is the region mountainous? How is it its relationship to sea level? Those types of things. Okay, that is topography. What are the elevation changes with the land? All right. Are there mountains? Are there valleys? What happens in between there? That type of thing. Okay, so you're looking at topographical, geographical, those types of things. Now, there's a reason why, and the thing is, there's a reason why that word is contained in this Greek chapter. And that's because with the Greeks, topography is a huge factor in their cultural development. Okay. And the big reason why is what I want to show you here on this slide that we're going to be looking at today and then into next week. All right. Can everybody see that slide right there? Yes, no, maybe so. Are we good on the slide? Yes, good. Okay, awesome. So guys, here's the thing with the Greek environment. All right, I love this map. The maps in your book are okay, but the maps that I'm going to put here on the PowerPoints are going to be extremely helpful because they show you both the geography and the topographical features, which you can start to see here from the mountains, all right? And then the places that aren't kind of what look like, they don't look wrinkled or crumpled, those are the valleys, okay, that you can see throughout Greece, but also things. So let's just take a minute here. Let's look at this map, all right? And what are some features, what are some things that you guys are noticing about this map? So like I said, this is just a very easy step into what we're looking at with the Greek map. All right, what are some things that you guys are noticing as you're looking at this map? Go ahead, throw them into the chats or unmute yourselves, whatever you guys want to throw in.
It seems to be kind of quite mountainous. Mm-hmm. And also, are you going to be posting this PowerPoint with narrated notes?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, this will be as we walk through all the Greek notes, just as we did with the Mesopotamians and Egyptians, this will be a video narration of the notes, same as the other ones, Mike.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, okay, great. So you got some people throwing in some stuff here. Lots of access to the ocean. Nicholas, that's a really good point to make. Nobody living in Greece, all right, no one living in Greece is more than a day or a half a day's journey from ocean access, from water access, okay? The Greeks, and this is a great line that one of the great Greek thinkers came up with, and I'll type it into the chat here. One of the great Greek thinkers that we're going to get into in the classical age is a guy named Plato, and one of his quotes is, "We Greeks, we sit like frogs around a pond." All right, it's kind of funny to think about. He goes, "We sit like frogs around a pond," and what he means by that is this thing called the Aegean Sea, right here, right here. All right, the Aegean Sea is central to Greek development, and so when you guys see the Aegean Sea, it's very similar. And I want you guys to have the same understanding of the Aegean Sea as you did with the Tigris and the Euphrates with Mesopotamia and the Nile with Egypt, okay? They are basically functioning along the same lines. The Aegean Sea is the highway. The Aegean Sea is the major source of food and sustenance for the Greeks. It is rich in fish, it's rich in shellfish, it's rich in all the types of things that you would want as a culture living near the ocean, okay? But another thing that I saw in the chat, which is interesting, Brady brought this up, battles in the main cities. Okay, that we'll talk about some of those battles, but one of the things I want you guys to see is that there is on this map, I want you guys to notice the sheer amount of cities in Greece. Okay, that's one thing that I want you guys to notice from this map is the fact that the Greeks had so many different cities, but the Greeks didn't refer to them as cities, all right? They're referred to, and you probably have heard this before, maybe as going through, your grade school, your high school. Greek cities were essentially known as city-states, right? Which means for our purposes that they function like modern nations, okay? So that's our modern connection today, all right, is that these Greek city-states, I'm not going to ask you to know obviously all of them, but you're going to see, we're going to talk about ones like Athens here. We're going to talk about Sparta and how different and peculiar and bizarre in some ways the Spartan culture was in comparison to the rest of the Greeks. But one of the things I want you guys to see is how each of these cities were like little nations in upon themselves. Right, they functioned as little separate entities. So one of the interesting things that the Greeks display culturally that we didn't see with the Egyptians were a much more like cohesive, unified culture. All right, the Greeks are going to be a much more fragmented, and in some ways, I want to say isolated. Okay. But the great word that you can come up with, okay, is fragmented, right? The Greek culture is a collection of fragmented city-states that have certain things in common. Those of you who have gotten into the reading, can you throw into the chat or maybe throw into or unmute yourself? Can you think of any things, if you have gotten into a little bit of the reading or just remember anything from Greece, are there things that the Greeks share in common there's a couple things that they do share in common, but then there's many things that make them different and fragmented. Anybody care to throw anything in there? Maybe I'll ask it differently if you guys are having trouble understanding that question. Let's take a look at this map. Say you are a Greek traveler from Corinth. All right. Yeah, Cam, good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, you're exactly right. The Greeks will have religious similarities, okay, that are contained within each city-state, okay? They will have religious similarities, although they will not be completely the same. They'll have religious similarities. So what that means is, if, say, you're a traveler from Corinth and you go to Athens, or you're from Argos, very famous, Jason and the Argonauts, okay? If you're from Argos and you visit, say, Sparta, are there things that you would be able to understand within each city-state? And the answer is yes. You would be able to understand. Oh, Brady, that's a good point. We'll get to that in a minute. You would be able to understand religious things. You would understand the gods. You would be able to look around and walk around their city and notice similar gods. However, each city-state, and we'll get into this as we move through next week, has its own patron god, okay? Where each city-state will celebrate. So there's a whole collection. Does anybody know the full name of the Greek gods? They have a full name. They were known as the blank. Right? The earliest Greek gods, we'll get into this, the earliest Greek gods were known as the Titans. And then the Greeks throw the Titans out and they bring in this next group, right? And they live in a certain place that you can see on this map. They live in a certain place. They are called a certain type of word. Does anybody know any of those things? Good. Seeing some people throwing some in. Yes, excellent. The Olympians, and they live on Mount Olympus. And you can see where Mount Olympus is here, north of the majority of the Greek states. Okay, they live on Mount Olympus. Okay, and they were called the Olympians. Excellent. And of course, we'll get into all the names. You got Zeus, and you got Apollo, and you have Athena. And so each Greek city-state would choose its own god as its kind of mascot, as its representative. Much like, we have sports teams today that fight for the city, when they go out and they compete and, huzzah for the city. And you got, the Cincinnati Reds and the Cincinnati Bengals, and then, even colleges, like Ohio State, fights for the city of Columbus, and UK fights for the city of Lexington, et cetera. The Greeks would have those types of things within their gods. So at the center of each city-state would be a temple to their patron god. So obviously Athens is going to have this huge temple to Athena, and the Spartans are going to pray most vividly to Apollo. Okay, and so each city-state is going to have those types of things. So it's excellent. Good. You're going to have similarities with their gods. What else? Say you were a traveler and traveling around. What else would you have in common with each other? Say if you were a person who was coming from Thebes, okay, and you were traveling from Thebes to Corinth, or you were coming from, Athens, and you wanted to go say hi to somebody out here in Arcadia. Would you be able to, I guess, understand that person? Yes, no, maybe so. Would a person from Sparta be able to understand a person from Athens?
What do you mean, kind of like understand?
Understand, like you, Michael, you and I can understand one another because we share. Yeah, okay, Brady, good. We share a language. We share an ability to communicate. Although different in some instances, in some aspects. There are differing dialects, but you're exactly right. All right. Yes. The Greeks will share a common language. And for the first time, guys, what we're going to get into here with the Greeks, all right, is we're going to see the mass production of an alphabet. Okay. And this is going to come, if we can get back to our textbook here. All right. I'm going to share this page back up again. All right. As you make your way through the text, I believe it's on, I'm not exactly sure remembering which page. I'm scrolling through your text here because I'm blanking on which exact page it's on. I think it's coming up here on page 186, I believe. Yes, 186. Okay. Make sure you guys have a distinct and good focus this weekend, looking at page 186 of your textbook. Okay. On the far right, it's going to show you the Greek letters. And you can start to see, finally, guys, we can start to see a little inklings of our letters. You can see alpha and beta, all right? And you can see our earliest, D and E and F and H. And you can start to see all of the letters that we start to understand. Now, these aren't exactly what they look like with our letters. When we get to the Romans in a couple of weeks and we look at the Latin language, then you'll start to really see the Latin language is the derivative from which we all sort of take our modern alphabet, and you'll see, oh, okay, those are all the letters that I understand. But you can start to see here how the Greeks had this alphabet that looks pretty daggone similar in some ways to letters that we can understand. And the point is, guys, now you can converse, you can talk with someone in a very quick way and in a very succinct and revolutionarily fast way with someone across the country, if you want to call it that. Now, just as, for instance, and I'll bring up Mike here. Just as, for instance, there are ways that we can understand each other, there are things like within each city's dialect, because they are like little nations. So there would be things that someone from Athens would not understand someone from Corinth or Sparta talking about. Okay, just general dialects and things like that. I'm sure there's words, and as I was when I was traveling over in England and Ireland, there were things that you guys would say, and I'd be like, I don't know what you mean by that, and it would take an extra level of translation, but by and large, you can understand each other. And that to me is interesting, that the Greeks are at once similar and at once very separated. So what separates them, right? What separates the Greeks out? Hopefully you can start to see it here. The Greek peninsulas here are extremely mountainous and extremely isolated. And some of the videos that we're going to be watching over the weekend and then next week are going to show you visually just how isolated the Greeks were from each other. What that means is that, remember guys, this is an era where travel is not the easiest thing, and not everybody has a horse. Horses in the ancient world are extremely expensive. Okay, so if you want to go somewhere, you're going to be walking for the most part. Okay, and these are not easy areas to traverse. All right, going up and through and down mountainsides is not the easiest thing for people. So for the Greeks, the easiest mode of travel, obviously, was by sea. Okay, so the Greeks are going to become our best navigators, our most seafaring population to date that we're going to look at. We're going to look at their different types of ships and how they were able to travel and those types of things. All right, so the easiest way for a Greek, say, to get from Athens to Sparta if you're looking at the map, the easiest way to get from Athens to Sparta, obviously, is just to put a boat in the ocean, okay, and follow your navigational charts and make yourself come down this way, all right? That's much easier than going through the mountains and the passes that it's going to take from city to city. And so one of the cool things is that each city is going to have its own little eccentricities, all right? And we're going to look at a few of those. Most specifically, we're going to look at the Spartans and how isolated the Spartans were down here in this area, all right? And that way we can get into what we want to look at. Good, excellent. So that basically, guys, is what we wanted to get into for today and for this weekend, all right, is looking at fragmentation and isolation, but also commonality with the Greeks. They are one of the more interesting cultures that we're going to look at. Maybe you'll like them, maybe you won't. We'll see. I know when we get into the Spartans, some people have really interesting reactions sometimes when we do the Spartans next week and we get into them. And some people really like them, and some people are like, dude, this is bizarre. I want to get away from this. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys come with your reactions to the Spartan culture and then to Greece in general. So remember, over this coming weekend, working on CPA number 3, I'll post that here on Canvas in a little bit. We'll have some videos, and then you're reading the first 12 pages, getting up to 186 and the alphabet for the weekend, and I'll be good to go. All right. Does anybody else got any questions as far as what we're doing and expected coming up?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So for Monday, so we'll just have to do the CPA number 3 and then do the quiz by Monday's class?
Yeah. So if you haven't done the quiz yet, and yes, and obviously CPA number 3, yeah, we got 2 things coming up over the next 3.5 days or so for Monday. Yep. So on when we get to Monday at 11:15, that's when 2 things are kind of due by then. Right? But you can knock those out whenever you want over the weekend. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem, man. No problem at all. So yeah, guys, religious similarities, language, fragmentation geographically, topographically, those are our big points that we want to talk about and that we want to focus with the Greeks as we step into that culture this weekend. Coolio? Awesome. Great. Well, I got to get to another meeting here coming up. So these guys, if you need a review of this, I'll post it on YouTube here for your viewing pleasure in a little bit. Awesome.
Cheers, mate.
Okay. Yep. Excellent. Same to you. Have a great weekend, and everybody stay safe, but have fun because you're college students and you're designed to have fun. All right. Great. See you, everybody.
Thank you.